Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hadeen, former installation contractor and boutique store owner, now coming at you every week with advice on how to turn your job into a business, go past that fishing test where you can hopefully leave and your company keeps running, making money without you instead of needing you for every step along the way. Owning a job, it's horrendous. And I'll be honest, right? Floor Academy is at the level of a job for me right now, but I'm able to implement these things into this business as well as the flooring business, installation business I was running before. And it makes my life easier. Even if you are and only want to own a job, it doesn't have to be as hard as it is for you right now and as frustrating. This week, I've got Kevin Wielgus of Floors Come True from Plainfield, Illinois with me. Him and his wife, Lisa, started the company, and they actually came up with a really unique way of coming up with a competitive advantage. There's a company in Chicago that's a very large outfit these days nationwide. They've got a catchy jingle for their 800 number, and they went and looked at negative reviews of all their competitors around them and said, what's the common theme amongst these and how do we solve those problems? And so they built a business model of, hey, let's offer all these services as well as the things they do well, and we shouldn't have any struggles. So I thought that was pretty unique, but in doing so, they've been able to grow a company that needs lots of installers. And Kevin's no stranger to looking to hire subcontractors, having to thin out the herd and really find the people that are going to be the best fit to partner with to elevate both businesses. And a common thing that happens is people are coming in the store and, the first question is, hey, you guys hiring? Okay. And then the follow-up question is, all right, what do you pay? Neither one of those is great, in my opinion. We'll get into it with Kevin on why. And he's got a great story of how a potential subcontractor called trying to find out if they had work and just went about it completely the wrong way, was very rude and, not kind to his staff. And then they tried again, which is even funnier. So we'll get into that, and then we'll find out what would be an ideal way of how to approach a retailer, business owner to business owner, instead of installer to business owner. And stop thinking of yourselves as just an installer. You are so much more, especially even if you're a sole proprietor, you are not just an installer. But if you took the time to fill out an LLC, you are for sure a business, and you need to treat it as such. I've got a quick word from Cronus Flooring Software before we begin. If your flooring business is giving you headaches, Cronus is the remedy you need. Cronus Flooring Business Manager is an easy-to-use and affordable solution that simplifies and streamlines your business operations, managing everything from leads and inventory to scheduling installations, all in one user-friendly platform. What sets Cronus apart is its comprehensive suite of features, ease of navigation, and full integration with QuickBooks. Don't let your business be a headache. Choose Cronus for a smoother, headache-free business management experience. Visit cronusoft.com/academy today to schedule a demo. That's KRONUSSOFT.com/academy, or click on the link in the show notes. Cronus, fast relief for your business headaches. Also, don't forget about our business therapy mastermind groups, where I put 5 business owners into a group meeting every other week for accountability and the purposes of staying goal-oriented and focused. And you also get the experience of all of the other owners in the group. Maybe they've been there, maybe they haven't. Sometimes we've got somebody doing $350K with somebody that's doing multiple $1 million in business a year. And the multiple $1 million business, they forgot what it's like to be scrappy, but the scrappy guy needs the structure of the multiple $1 million business guy. So there's a lot of exchange. There's a lot of great talk of, how do we accomplish these different things? And so if you want to take your business to the next level, visit flooracademypod.com/mastermind to learn more. That's enough out of me. Kevin, thank you for joining us. Who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it?
Pleasure, Carl. Thanks for having me. So, as you mentioned earlier about us starting the business, a little bit more in terms of transparency, I was part of the leadership team at that large company that you had talked about.
Okay.
Um, so, so one of the things that was a big motivator for me to leave and strike out on my own was that I like to be able to answer my phone. And I wanted those calls that were coming in to be referrals, repeat customers, to be compliments, to be good things,
Hmm.
and not to have to be ditching calls or avoiding or sending to voicemail because it was stuff that just wasn't the things that I wanted to deal with. I want everybody that I work with to be able to reach me, and that was kind of the basis of it. And a lot of that had to do with what was going on at the installation level as well. Even though I was not personally involved with the installation management of installers or anything
Hmm.
related to that, um, stuff doesn't always roll downhill. Sometimes it rolls uphill, and managed to find me. So that was a lot of the basis of it. So yeah, our company started as a kind of a hybrid between the pure shop at home version of business, but with more of the boutique experience of a specialized flooring retailer with brick and mortar. So
Okay.
uh, that's the basis by which we operate. So we do have mobile showrooms, very large company vans with thousands of samples on them, to give really good opportunities for product selection, to make sure that we can meet the needs of
Hmm.
all range of clients, from basic to bougie. We like to think about it. We've got everything in between. So
Love it.
as that's happened, it meant that we had to grow and scale and bring on more installers as the business grew. They really do tend to be the limiting factor sometimes in terms of how many jobs. Doesn't make sense to take money from a lot of people if you can't service the jobs and get them installed in a way that you'd be happy to put your name on it. So
Hmm.
that that definitely leaves us open to doing it. But we've had a good run. I think we're going on about 8 years now, and experienced a really good time and been able to make a lot of people happy.
Excellent. So let's dive into this. You had made a post in one of the Facebook groups,
Yep.
and
Yep.
somebody reached out and did not follow ideal protocols for you. So why
Yep.
don't you tell us about an installer reaching out and kind of how that went and what the problems with it
Okay.
were?
Well, this was a call that came in, and the fact that this call made it all the way up to my phone later on a Saturday evening was a bunch of things had to fall in line for that to happen. So the call came in very late. We have after hours call answering services and systems to take care of that. And apparently they weren't all working, or this gentleman actually tried to call multiple times in a row and it escalated it. So this call, fortunately, the first one ended up into my hands. Now, where the number that he was calling was a marketing number to book appointments. So we use a variety of phone numbers, from our branded number that's in the jingle to our local numbers to others for call tracking purposes.
Hmm.
So we knew what the source of the call was and when it came in. And considering the late hour, I mean, this is approximately 9 o'clock on a Saturday evening, that this call comes in, and with no delay went right into pitching himself for a job, for looking for work.
Okay.
Now, normally, there's really no reason that I would have answered that call. So it was pure coincidence that even I got the call and that I was somebody who could have even had that conversation with him. The number that he called would have mostly been answered by customer service type representative to get some information, book an appointment for an in-home consultation, and if there was more to that, take a message and get it over to the appropriate party. So the first thing I would say, even before the call was answered, is I'd give the advice that calling a marketing number, you're probably not going to get the right people, in every instance. It's like walking into a McDonald's and the cashier is not the person who you're going to talk to about replacing the roof on that McDonald's. Just knowing who your
Yes.
audience is. It chapped me a little bit because that was a Google local search call, so it ended up costing us money for that call to come in, which we then have to go through the process of filing a dispute with Google, saying it's not a legitimate customer, it was a job seeker, and ultimately we were able to get credit for that.
Hmm.
But to go in that call, just to go in with no question to me answering the phone, are you the right person that I should talk to? It became clear a couple seconds into the call that he may have had a cocktail or two in him, um, and just proceeded to plow over me in the conversation. And anybody who knows me should know that's not an easy thing to do. So I'm a pretty strong, opinionated person. At this moment, I'm off guard. I'm also taking the role of a people pleaser and a sales role at this point, not as the business owner, but as a sales role to try and book an appointment. Because if that call came to me at 9 o'clock on a Saturday, it meant somebody else had missed the calls.
Hmm.
So my guard was in a different spot, but he just came in and just started rolling this conversation, very bold, very boisterous of everything that he could do and that he'd been doing something for 35 years. He can do everything we could throw at him. So I let him get a little bit of that off. And then I proceeded to ask a couple of questions to then find out that we were having two different conversations. We use subcontractors who are responsible for their jobs, as we kind of talk about, their prices and things along those lines.
Hmm.
And in reality, he was looking for a job, not even to be part of it. He was a longstanding installer, but I had asked him questions about his equipment, about his insurance, about his vehicles, and things along those lines. He didn't have anything. He had already
Okay.
sold everything and given up this business. So, when I tried to explain these things to him, um, he got offended that I was then wasting his time. And when I then said, he's like, well, can you put me on any of your crews, and try to explain that that is the crew leader or the foreman or those independent business owners' decision about who they take. And it didn't really seem like he listened to that answer either.
Hmm.
And he was a couple of towns over, certainly within our service area. But then after hearing all these things that made it sound like we weren't a fit, he still proceeded to berate me because I was too far away from his location. Even though there was no offer to work together, there was no offer to put him onto a crew, there was no discussion of job site localities. And to be fair, we're talking maybe 12, 15 miles max from where he was located to our warehouse or office.
Okay.
So then he proceeded to become belligerent, cussing, and as he was hanging up the phone, was calling me names, and then it proceeded. So because that was a Google local search ad, we even had a recording of it. So I have all the receipts for that. Not that I need to
Hmm.
call this guy out, but I found it amusing for how many things could possibly go wrong in that phone call.
Yeah,
Um,
there's quite a few.
it, yeah, yeah. It then happened a couple of days later that he did call back. At this point, happened to get my wife. So more things that could possibly go wrong. Now she was unaware of the other call. We don't talk about all of these things,
Hmm.
over dinner. So during that call, he called her sweetheart and Missy, and just a lot of other potential red
Jeez.
flags that are coming up at this point. And then what any other person who other than me answering that call would do is they took the information and passed it along to me. And then I called him back, and within seconds of speaking, I recognized the voice, and the story started off exactly in the same spot.
Oh,
To which I'm
jeez.
thinking is, this story didn't end well last time. Why are we rerunning it? So I'd like to say that he's unique, but he's probably just the most extreme version of that conversation. So having that is what started the whole conversation between us and the Facebook group.
Hmm.
But there's certainly more examples of this because I guess on a positive side is we have a good reputation as a company
Okay.
that people want to work with, that installers want to work with. So that makes our finding installers a relatively easy job. Just like when you run a good business, you have referrals that are
Hmm.
coming to you. We get referrals of installers. The installers themselves, they talk amongst themselves. They're getting their sundries at similar locations, and they'll talk.
Yep.
So we prefer to get new installers through that method, but we're certainly open to the public, or they see our vans and they call us, or they see the ads. So we do get a fair number of people coming through that channel. And we've tried to, as you mentioned, we try to have a good process. We try to be very objective and fair. and not to prejudge anybody
Hmm.
based on the channel that they're coming, and try to be very open-minded. At one point a startup business, as having to be scrappy, I can respect the people who are having a no work day, and instead of doing nothing or doing something destructive, they're picking up the phone and calling local businesses. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
But as the whole point of this conversation is, there's definitely better ways to do it. There probably isn't one best way, especially for all the different businesses and retailers. They're going to have their own process. So there's probably no
for sure.
one way, no best way, but there's definitely some ways to not do it. And the inebriated call later in the evening and cussing out the business owner uh, is definitely
Yeah,
in the category of not the right way to do it.
for sure. So let's talk about what's ideal for you, right? And you're right. It may not be ideal for everyone, but it's at least a place to kind of start thinking about how do we approach people. Again, going back to the intro, it's all the time. I know that guys and gals are walking in and it's, hey, do you have any work? And then immediately it's, okay, how much do you pay? And as a subcontractor, that's not how it really should be working, is you should be dictating how much you pay. And if the shop is dictating how much they pay you, you may want to reevaluate that situation and have a discussion with them, because technically they're not allowed to do that, but we won't go down that road. This is more of, how do you come in and present yourself as a business that wants to partner with another business. And I think that's the hurdle I really want to get over, is that I don't know that a lot of installation crews think of themselves as a company, right? It's, oh, I'm just an installer, I'm going to go get work, right? This is the store that feeds me. And that's the mindset that we need to get rid of. So how would we best even approach you in order to find out if Floors Come True was hiring, and then how would we start that process of trying to build a valuable partnership between our two companies that could be long lasting?
I think that even starts before the initial contact is made. Some of this I would liken to just being a regular job seeker. If you were just looking for a job at a company,
Hmm.
to do a little bit of basic information. Do they actually do what your skill set is? So if you are only a tile setter and the company has no tile services offered whatsoever, and that is your one and only skill set, that's probably not a place that you need to apply to or to make the introduction, unless there was a business model that you had that says, oh, they probably don't offer tile because they don't have a tile guy, and I can come in and save the day.
Hmm.
But if you can just do a little bit of research that says, is this a company that does what I want to do? And are they a decent company? So if I'm a good guy as a work seeker, is this a good company that has a good reputation? Do we align? Is there some way to find out if our values can align even before making the introduction or reaching out?
I love that
Then,
you hit on values. I don't think that's considered enough. Again, I think a lot of times it comes down to, how do I get money to pay bills Friday? And that's all.
yeah,
That's the only consideration. There isn't. I don't know that a lot of installation companies have ever defined what their core values are. And I've been really big on that for probably like the past 6 months, year, on this show and in my mastermind groups, of like, you guys need to have these things, because this is how you determine if you want to work with someone. Can you, if your values align, it's much easier than if they're opposing, because then you're just going to be resentful of how they do business all the time, because you're not in alignment. It doesn't make sense.
it's a relationship. It's not that much different than dating on the way through to a marriage.
Hmm.
Is if you're at polar opposites of a certain value spectrum, it's going to be very difficult to come to compromise. It's going to be difficult to have conversation without it turning into confrontation. You might just be going in there and then just doing it for the money, as you mentioned, and passions are going to dissipate, and excitement about the opportunities are going to be there, and seeing it as a true partnership is just going to fall by the wayside. And that's not
Yeah.
the way that we like to operate. One of our philosophies me as a leader, I don't like to think of it as being the boss. I do like to think of myself more as that leadership position, is that on a day-to-day basis when things are going wrong, I think that I work for the installers. That's my attitude. So we're often looking for ways to make sure that they have what they need to do the best job possible. Not the quickest job, not the cut corners, not to
Hmm.
get onto the next one, but to do the best job possible. And having that tone is also important to recognize the type of company you may be going to apply for. Now, if there's another company that is race to the bottom, all about the dollars, and they're going to be pushing you as a quality craftsman to do the work faster than you may be comfortable doing, or to cut the corners, or not paying enough, or allowing for the additional work authorizations to get the
Hmm.
job done properly. How are you going to feel at the end of the day? Is that going to be where, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to do this and just not get paid on it? I better not rock the boat and bring up that floor leveling. I better just do it. Otherwise, I get put to the bottom of the rotation and maybe never hear from these guys again. So that's part of the
Yeah.
culture. If you, and I don't even want to say that one way is right or wrong. Now, I have my personal opinion and the way that we like to operate, but there are businesses that are pure dollars and cents
Hmm.
production, fast as possible. And that may work for some installers. They may like that fast pace where they may not be called out for high levels of quality. So it's just really that incompatibility that I would be looking for in terms of seeing what the culture is and the type of company.
You
So now
won't say
let's
it.
assume that we made it
I'll
past
say
that.
it. The dollars and cents business model, and having to worry about if you're gonna get knocked to the bottom of the rotation and whatnot. That's the wrong business model. Don't go work for those folks, man. Don't stop it. There's great companies out there to work for that'll pay you fairly, treat you right, and if you stop working for the guys for the companies that don't treat you right, they can't service the people coming in, and they'll go out of business, right? They can sell all the flooring they want, but if it can't be installed, they're not completing the process here, and that work will have to go find its way elsewhere, which will probably be to a shop that will take care of you. So you all have some power. You just need to realize it. You don't. I get that we have to make. Look, if it was down to it, I'm gonna go work at McDonald's. I'm gonna go work for the low pay. I'm gonna pay my bills. But we don't always have to. We have choices, and you don't have to stay where you're at. So I'll leave it at that, and we can continue. I'll get off my
Yeah.
soapbox.
So if we get compatible on the values and it is a company that we could see ourselves working with, and then you're going to make that introduction, the first point of contact, there may be a path that they want you to follow. So for
Hmm.
us, we have a page on our website where people can start the journey with us. If it's a phone call, start off with asking, or if you walked into the store, start off by asking who the person is that would be appropriate to have this conversation with. Dumping your life story and your seeking of jobs and all this on somebody who is responsible for booking appointments or somebody who was just there dusting the showroom
Hmm.
uh, is a waste of everybody's time. The story then needs to be repeated and got to the right person. So it shows kind of an attention to detail just for how you operate. That'd be like, I guess there's a parallel to almost everything from the getting hired part of the relationship all the way down to the actual doing the job part of
Yeah.
it. And telling the receptionist, all of your experience and why you're the best man for the job is probably the same as talking about the project with the Amazon delivery guy who happened to be on the porch of the house you arrived at, and asking which way he wants the vinyl run. He's not part of that conversation. So
Yes.
find out who the right person is, the right methods to get in touch with them. Uh, Many bigger locations, would make it simple. If somebody walked in off the street, they basically had a little one-page sheet to say, "This is what you do," and that may be okay. Find out what that company is, and then submit through that channel or have the conversation with the right person.
Hmm.
Even if they're in that location, it may not be the right time to have that conversation. They may be jumping on a Zoom to do a podcast. They may be walking out the door. They may have other fires to put out. So finding out you may be a great fit, but it may be the wrong time to have a conversation. So that would be the next step, is finding the right people, finding the right channels,
Yep.
and then following that process. If the company has set one out.
Okay. So
And
I've
then,
come, well, okay, I've
then
come
it's up
in,
to
I've
you.
presented myself, and I've figured out who to talk to, and I can set up, if they're not available, I can set up an appointment. How do I need to present myself during this conversation though, and what's the approach that you would like? Because again, I think a lot of times it's, oh, you have work, okay, how much do you pay? And so
Right.
what's really going to make it valuable for you? Like, what would you actually want installers asking you about how they can help your business?
I think that direct question, maybe in other words, but how can I help you? What are you looking for? Relative to your skill sets. It's okay to lay them out there, but say, hey, I've got experience. We do hardwood refinishing. Is that something that you offer, or have you shied away from it because of not having enough experienced crews to handle it?
Mm-hmm.
So you've relegated yourself to pre-finished only, or to LVP only. Um, there may be opportunities for that, but to sort of talk about and put a picture out there of how you're going to bring value to the company, that you're going to have a good experience. I think of this as your first impression. And when we talk about the different installers, we're always hiring for high skill. But on the other end of that, we have the intangibles, the non-skill related. It's not about how tight you can stretch the carpet or how
Mm-hmm.
awesome your seams look. But as you're leaving that house as an installer, you're the last impression that the customer has. Was everything good? So your bedside manner, I guess, would be the way to think about it, and how you present that is very important.
Mm-hmm.
If I have the choice of two equally skilled people and one can make Mrs. Johnson feel like $1 million at the end of it, and the other is going to make Mrs. Johnson feel like writing a nasty letter, I'm going to send the nice guy to that job. So having that empathy, having that good communication, um, this shouldn't be a scene from Step Brothers where they're walking in for a formal interview wearing tuxedos as a team. We're not looking for that. But we certainly want to have
Mm-hmm.
the thought of, is this somebody that I can send to my customers' homes, and that I can have them, that I can be comfortable with them as an extension of our brand? Because
So
after all, our brand is the promise that we make to the consumer.
mhm. So I mean, you're looking at appearance, you're looking at how they handle conversation, how they respond. We don't want people showing up with their cracks hanging out. Are you looking at the vehicles they show up in, the trailers they show up in? Are you looking at the appearance of how it's all kind of done? You have that typical picture of a contractor, and the dashboard's filled with lunch bags from fast food restaurants and
Sure,
cigarette packs, and they open the door and all this stuff falls out, and there's
sure.
invoices and papers everywhere. And that's not who I would want necessarily showing up and representing me.
So,
Are
so
you
to be
are you looking at
fair,
those things, is that not even a
for
consideration yet?
us, that's a little bit further down the conversation.
Okay.
So, because we're not a retail store, we don't have a big opportunity for random walk-ins. So, most of what we have is like the gentleman calling on a Saturday night. It starts with a phone conversation or an
Mm-hmm.
online form, and we'll have a phone conversation to cover a little bit to make sure that if even the face-to-face makes sense. During that face-to-face, yes, we will be looking at like the vehicle, condition of tools, organization. But so even prior to that, it's how organized are they for something that they knew they were going to do. So they woke up that morning, or they called in, or let's say they did walk into somebody who has that opportunity for a brick and mortar. They knew they were doing it. It probably wasn't. Well, I guess it could be. Sometimes they just randomly were driving by, said, "Hey, there's a store. Let me pop in."
Mm-hmm.
But if they were prepared to have it, they should probably know enough to have the conversation. Like we talked about with the rates, do they have a rate sheet? Do they know how to uh, discuss their rates and how they charge?
Mm-hmm.
And are they organized enough to do it? So, fast forwarding to doing the job, are they organized to look at a work order? Are they organized to make sure that they brought the appropriate tools? I mean, not all these guys, every single piece of equipment they own is on their truck every day.
Correct.
So did they, are they the type who gets to the job? Oh my gosh, I forgot my stretcher. Oh, there's quarter. Oh my gosh, I forgot my miter saw. Um, so if they're coming in and like, oh, are they prepared to have this conversation? In an ideal situation, because what are we going to ask for? And they may not know this, but if they've talked to one or two other retailers, they probably know. Do they have their insurance information
Mm-hmm.
to at least put us at ease? I mean, yes, they can say I have insurance, and then we say great, to follow the process, we're going to need to get listed as a additional certificate holder or whatnot. And maybe they bluffed. Maybe they didn't have insurance and they were going to get that figured out after they got the job offer or
Mm-hmm.
the opportunity to work together.
Yeah.
Do they have their price list ready to go? Do they have anything, even if it's on their phone, a portfolio of pictures of anything that they've done, something to be ready? Just like walking into a job interview, have your resume, even if it's been sent online or emailed into the hiring manager, have that copy, be prepared
Yeah.
to have it. So I think a lot of that is, if you're not prepared for an initial meeting or an interview, how are you going to be prepared when you're at a job site? So that being prepared, then the conversation can really start.
Okay.
Uh,
Let me interrupt us real quick, and then I'll come back. I kind of want to ask about like what kind of questions they could ask you to try and draw out some value. We got a quick word from John's Manville. The rumors are true. GoBoard Pro is available and approved for steam showers. GoBoard Pro was developed with the pro contractor's ease of project workflow in mind. Panels sized at 48 by 64 inches will limit waste on your project. They'll require less seams, meaning less sealant is needed. And best of all, you can space those beautiful blue GoBoard washers. Nope, fasteners. They oh my goodness. I can't even get through the ad read, folks. You can space those beautiful blue GoBoard fasteners out to 12 inches without the need for washers. That's how all those words are tied together. You don't need the washers on this. Visit www.jm.com/GoBoard for more information and all of their product details, and to learn more about, they got their wedges, they've got their shower pans, they got drain kits. You've got a list of other approved sealants if you can't find GoBoard sealant and it'll still meet their warranty. You've got lots of options. jm.com/GoBoard. All right, Kevin, we are back, and we're talking about, how to come in and be prepared and really, make sure we have all these details out. Maybe that's something that I can start working on and trying to develop, is like putting together, a list of stuff that people could, let's get old school. Let's go get a folder and try and, maybe we print it up with company letterhead. Maybe it's just a plain black folder or something, but we get all of the stuff we need inside of it so we can sit down and present it. Here's, it's got our insurance information, it's got our rate sheet, it's got some pictures of our prep work and our finish work, all those little things in it. But what kind of questions could they come in and ask you that would present value? I was just having a conversation with Mark Bischoff of StarNet, and he came up with this idea that like blew my mind. And he was like, call the manufacturers and ask them what their biggest reason for callbacks are. And then when they tell you, ask them if they wouldn't mind sending you out product as an installer for you to practice with, so that you can not have those issues. And I was like, man, that's pretty genius, right? Like, go to the source of where all the stuff is happening and then see if they'll help you get educated so you can do it. Is that a question that would work for you as well? Of what are your most common callback complaints? And then from your answer, I could kind of gauge, hey, what if this was implemented, or, I'm able to provide these services while I'm installing to prevent that kind of stuff. Would that be a good place to start for you?
any opportunity to bring some value and make our life better. Now, follow an old adage of like, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And it doesn't necessarily mean that every business owner is going to be willing to hear every possible thing that you have to say as far as bringing value. Mm-hmm. So asking what their challenges are is a great opportunity for you to then provide the solutions, rather than simply providing a bunch of solutions that they may already have handled a different way that they're very happy with, or it may not even be a problem for the types of jobs that they work on. So, yeah, definitely asking about the different types of jobs they have, and how the process works along the way. Get the retailer talking about what happens in the course of a project, and they can have a better idea for where those opportunities are.
Okay.
And it may be, I'm sure we have very common threads between the companies, between floor prep issues or shortages or gapping, and that may be also an opportunity for the installer to see there may be some hidden red flags that they might not be aware of. That a lot of common problems are, installers complain about shorty boards, on a job, or misaligned tiles, or things that don't click together. And maybe that company's not using the best quality of materials to get the
Yeah.
job done. So they can frame that and bring that opportunity up of things that they've done in other positions to make the customer happier. So in my business, at least, that's the end mission. Did you do something to make the customer happy? We give discretion to installers to know that they can ask for a certain dollar amount above the project that we don't have to necessarily go back to the customer for, to nickel and dime them to make them happy. And what are things that they've seen, whether that's really great example, something we actually raised our prices for based on some installers that came in,
Okay.
was the different way that they finished their shoe molding. And we ended up making it more of a standard, instead of just cutting the 22 and a halfs at the door jams or whatnot, to do more returns, and made it more of the standard. And we raised what we pay across the board for all of that,
Nice.
based on that being a new standard. And that came to us through one particular installer, who came through, and we were able to tolerate the price difference. But that's a great example where somebody's like, "Oh, have you thought of doing this?" Or we had another set of sand and finish crews that brought up some different finishes. We were, through most of our crews, we were more of the Bona, Loba, traditional finishes.
Okay.
And next thing you know, we got some new guys coming in, and they cross-pollinated, and brought up the opportunity that, maybe we just didn't think about it, or we saw it at surfaces a couple of years ago, but maybe now we're offering a different wax finish or something that they brought up as an opportunity. Are we losing out on anything because we can't do it? So the little things that I think the benefit of having independent contractors, is that if they're doing their job, they're learning outside of our four walls, and outside of the four walls of the customer. And they
Yeah.
can bring that back to the conversation. So find out what the retailer would be open to hearing about, where their opportunities and challenges are. And then if you've got something that's great that you can offer to it. If it's not, and you don't have a solution for it, being open and willing to explore that with them is fantastic. We just sent a couple of guys down to Alabama for some floor prep training,
Okay.
and they were relatively new guy, and it was actually a helper on one of my better crews, who said, "Boy, I wish we could be better at this. I feel like we're struggling on this." So he kind of brought it up, and then turned out I brought that up to other installers in our list. Are like, "Yeah, we feel like this is a challenge too." So the one who went down to Alabama came back up, and he's now passing it along to other, more cross pollination. So
Yeah.
that's happening within the family once they're in the fold. But if you come to me and you're going to make my life better, if you're going to make all of my installers better, and not have this attitude of, I'm just going to hold this to myself and edge them out of the work,
Okay.
that's a little bit selfish. I mean, it's self-serving, certainly, but if you want to come be part of my team, what can you bring to the team? All those different levels of experience.
No, I like that you're looking for people that are, running a business, getting educated, staying informed, and you're looking for them to come to you, as you're hiring them for their expertise in installation, and they're needing to come to you and say, "Hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that?" You are the expert at finding the work, selling the work, but you need them, you rely on them to be the experts in getting it done. And that may involve offering, new finish options, or like you said, coming up with a different way to do quarter round. You're having people go and get educated on better floor prep processes and spreading that. And so they're coming to you as and saying, I need, the ability to do this, and then I can better serve you. Or have you thought about these options that have come to market to better serve you? I'm sure if they're coming to you with product complaints that they don't enjoy installing XYZ material, you're probably considering, okay, is it worth it for us to sell this? Because everyone's saying this really isn't a great material. And I don't know that that happens at all shops, or that everyone's open to hearing that, but I think that's how these relationships should ideally work. So everyone's getting the best of both worlds. And I like what I'm hearing. It also sounds as if, to go back a little bit earlier in the conversation, right? You were saying that they could come in and start espousing all of their great qualities. And look, I get it. Everyone loves to talk about themselves and tell what makes them so great. But if Kevin doesn't need all of these things you're talking about, or there's only one that really applies, then why don't we just, cut the middle out and get to the point that matters? And so how do you as the installer need to be going in and making the conversation about how you can solve their problems, but you need to get to that point first, right? Let Kevin or whoever you're going to work with talk about themselves. And then you can jump in and say, oh, well, have you considered this? Have you considered that? Or I have, I've done this in the past. Here's some examples of it. And now you're providing them what they need. But you talking about how you've been installing for 25 years and never had a callback, I don't really care. That's not important to me. That's not solving any problems for me. And I'm sure it makes you feel great, but I truly don't care. Is that a fair assessment of how that goes?
It definitely makes sense. I mean, it's very similar to the function that we have on the other side of the business of selling, is that the customer doesn't know or doesn't care how much we know until they know how much we care. So we need to find out what their needs are. And it'd be very similar if we just ended up on a tangent at a customer's house who called us for hardwood flooring, and we're talking about crown molding or cabinetry or something that's completely unrelated. It's a waste of the time in that meeting, and shows a lack of focus. And it could be the same risk that you could put onto me. If you're going to do this to me, which should be a bigger, more important conversation. This is probably your bigger, more important conversation of the day, trying to find a source of more work. What's going to happen just at the job site? Are you going to be a rambler? Are you going to talk about things that don't matter to the customer at that point, which may bore the customer at the worst? At the best case scenario, you just took more time at the job and are kind of cutting into it. I think we've all met the chatty, overly chatty people. And we've had the customers, we've obviously had the customers that are over the installer's shoulder and, trying to look and see everything else. But if we're the source of dragging those things on and talking about things that don't matter, it kind of comes off a little bit tone deaf when you talk about things that the other person isn't interested in. And it can be awkward for the other person, because I'm sitting here going, do I let him ramble? Do I just cut him off? Is this what a phone conversation at 3:00 on a Friday is going to be, when all I'm looking for is the job done? Is the customer happy? And I'm hearing about, the traffic accident and everything else. Are they able to gauge how a conversation is flowing? And just being a good communicator in general is going to be important. So yeah, definitely finding out what the other person is interested in and then addressing that. Find out, I would say probably goes down this path, but find out why are we looking for more installers at this time? From an installer's perspective, that's good information to have. It could either be that you're losing people. Okay, why why are you losing people? Would be good information. Um, or you're growing and you're adding to it, which is certainly in the upward trajectory of business.
Yeah.
Uh, or are you having to let people go? I mean, is it just that the quality, or you're doing a shift, or the changes in the products that you're offering, and the guys, I've got carpet guys that I'm like, guys, learn how to do LVP. Right now we've got more LVP than we do carpet. I'll help you. Here's a box of materials. Start figuring it out.
Hmm.
If it was the other direction, I'd be like, there's a bunch of remnants. Go seam them together. Let's talk.
Yeah.
But find out where those opportunities are, and why you're there. It's like if you're dating, why is somebody single?
Would
How's a pretty girl like you been single all these years?
would you be offended if a potential installation company asked you for references to some of your other crews that are currently employed?
Great question. I would say that if it was a large installation company, let's say somebody that is also managing 6 crews themselves,
Hmm.
yeah, I would probably be a little bit hesitant to that. Are they just looking to poach? If it's compatible, that it's a 2-man crew and they're asking to maybe talk to another one, I wouldn't be offended by it.
Okay.
Frankly, I wouldn't be. Most of the time when they come to us, they already know one of the other ones. I mean, those are the ones that
Hmm.
make it to the face-to-face interviews. Um, we cross pollinate, and I have guys go. I'm like, just go watch that other job, even when they've been with us for a while. Going, why is that guy able to knock in 1,000 feet in a day when you're struggling to hit 500?
Hmm.
What can you do? Even if it's go be a helper over there. So we're not afraid of the cross pollination later. So I don't think I would be offended early on. Um,
Well, I asked because I assume that you're going to want to call like another store or two that they worked for, right? If we're going to play the references game, but technically we're both businesses and we're looking to partner together, then shouldn't that be able to go both ways? And maybe I want to talk to everything can sound great from you, but I can make anything sound great, so let me talk to, I think maybe I'd want to talk to some of the people that have been there for a minute and see, hey, what's it really like, working with them? How long have you been doing it? Has it been going well? But I think you would want to know, call up the other stores and see like, are they just moving locations? Did they change states? Are they maybe, difficult to work with? Like you can fake your way through an interview pretty well, I feel.
I also, as far as references go, I don't think anybody's going to give me the name and phone number of somebody that's going to slam them. So
Not
they're always
generally.
going to be good They're going to be good references.
Yeah.
They're going to, whether they're that or whether it's somebody who's posing as or whatever. So I don't put as much weight on that.
Hmm.
In the inverse, though, for talking to our guys, I would, not only if they asked, I would almost invite them, because I would say that if we are actively looking, then we have a need, right? So at some point, if we want that person, I'm going to be turning the tables and selling to them on why they should make themselves available to us for work.
Hmm.
Okay. I don't want to say that we would be desperate at that point, but I would have that saying, hey, look at how great it is here. Come here. Let me grab Israel from this. He was loading up. Let's go talk to him really quick. Hey, Israel, in your own words, tell this guy what's the top 3 reasons why, you like working with us.
Hmm.
What can we do better? I want the feedback too. So I wouldn't be offended by it at all, because in our process, we would ultimately be going to it. So you kind of like
Yeah.
mentioned earlier with the checking out their vans and things like that. So we have a series of technical business questions, and then we also have the technical questions that can sometimes just weed the guys out that
Okay.
we're faking it. There's I won't get into what they are, but there's just a couple of installation related questions that there's probably not a right or wrong answer, but not having an answer is not the place you'd want to be. Uh, and then when we get together, I will take another potential trusted installer with me to a job site. So our process is, if we make it through all that
Hmm.
and we do take a look at the van and paperwork all checked out and the rates all make sense, are the tools in good shape? I mean, do they look like they're beat up? And is the van falling apart? Is it going to be cardboard in the client's driveway to prevent the oil stains? Any of the other red flags. When we
Yeah.
get past all that and we want to go to a job site, We'll go in a very casual, unmarked sort of a way and say, let's see how you run a job site.
Okay.
Um, and then, only then, can we then talk about putting you onto one of our job sites. And we start off relatively small jobs, relatively close to our base of operations. So if the crap hits the fan, we're replacing that job at the store's expense. It's not an overwhelming
Hmm.
thing. Haven't had to do it yet, but we're just risk management at play.
Fair enough. I like the
And then and
approach.
then and then we'll be there so we can check in multiple times during that. Check in at demo, check in at handling, check in at installation,
Hmm.
way more than we ever would on a typical job to know that the trust has been built up. And then you're doing 1,500 square feet across town, and you probably don't see me again.
Yeah.
So
No, that's fair. Do you put any stock in certifications if someone's coming to you with, their CTI for tile or some kind of CFI or NWFA certification? Does that add any weight to their credentials for you, or do you not care and it's more about show me
I
what actually happens in the field?
I think it's a mixed answer to that one because I was going to bring it up earlier when you mentioned having a folder ready and saying if you had those certifications, have them with you
Hmm.
at that point to discuss them. So the actual piece of paper itself is a little bit less important to me, but what it communicates to me is that you are taking the time to self-invest into these things and to stay current. Some of the most dangerous things in business and in life is just to say that's the way we've always done it. Um,
Yes.
and there's some very expensive words for somebody to say, and it's the reason that other professionals have continuing education mandates. So the fact that they're taking their career and their craft seriously and doing those things, the piece of paper is a way to demonstrate that it's there. But I'd
Hmm.
equally be, I don't know about equally, but near equally happy with talking about the different installers that they may follow or uh, the different tips and tricks they have, or maybe it's not certificate based, but just to
Hmm.
watch the different tutorials and things like that on the products that are out there so that they're continuously self improving. I haven't had enough coming through that are waiving their credentials
Yeah.
uh, to me to build the business around it. So for us, if we had this as a huge benefit that all of our wood guys were all NWFA
Hmm.
certified or whatever we have, then we would start promoting it to our consumers as well.
Yeah.
One or two random doing it, then it becomes a logistics nightmare. Like, oh, you told me you had NW. Okay, now I got to make sure that I put this crew on that job because they're going to be checking for the card when they walk through the front door.
Yep.
We're probably just premature in that we don't have enough to make the actual
Hmm.
card mean that much to us. But I like the idea that they're self improving.
Okay. So well, and I think that's part of the discussion too. Is for me, I know that at one point the box stores or a box store was heavily involved with offering the subs. Hey, you can come. We're gonna pay for this. You can just attend, and we'll get you certified. And that's awesome. Except if you're not paying for it, right? I don't take something as seriously when I'm not personally invested in it. And I think that's a difference too. Is so if somebody's coming around and waving a credential, did they pay for it themselves and take it seriously, or were they an employee that was sent, forced to do it, and did they really get everything they took away for it? Some employees are great, right? They will take it seriously and they really do want to invest in themselves, but not all of them, right? They're just going to show up, they're going to do the bare minimum, they're going to walk away, and they have a sheet of paper, but they can use it down the road as to say that there's something they're not. And I guess that would lead into, do you ever do any kind of tests instead of like letting them go and take a small job? Do you have anything kind of set up in the back that you could have them work in a small box to test them on site just to see kind of how they handle the tools, how they handle the materials, and do
We've
it?
got, yeah, I mean, a number of different things that we go through. We've got a large section of, I call orphans. random boxes of leftover planks and materials and carpets, from
Hmm.
different jobs of varying thicknesses, varying pile types, so we could see what seam quality looks like. Um, so yeah, we definitely go through that process. If I guess we're more strict with that if they didn't come to us through a referral,
Hmm.
through somebody that used to work together. So if they're coming in a little bit more cold, I guess we'll grill them a little bit more. And a lot of that
Okay.
is to say is we're hard to get in with, but we're great once you're here. Um, so it's kind of like getting into Harvard. Just
Hmm.
the evaluation and the selection process is what makes a Harvard lawyer so sought out. It's not the education they got, it's that they made it in. So,
Which is
we
fair.
definitely will have that opportunity for them to show different things. And that might be the Mohawk Arrow carpet that they've never seen. I'm not going to have an opportunity to see them do it in the field. So
Hmm.
I've got scraps of that we'd want to see them put together. How are they tapping? Small tests, uh, calibration of tools is like a big thing. Anybody who's carried a miter saw to a job site knows that those get out of whack uh, pretty easily. And to know that this guy whose saw is so out of adjustment that he's not going to be able to get a clean miter if his life depended on it,
Hmm.
or doesn't have a coping saw on his truck. Those are big signs for us, that they're how are they going to do this job? And if even if it's just taking the miter saw and just checking two cuts or putting you can't always tell just by putting a square up to the saw to see if the table and blade and everything are in square.
Hmm.
But you can do a couple of quick cuts and see that that's what it's going to look like on the job site. And our what do they say, putty and paint to do what the carpenter can't, right? We want to make sure that we can get tight fits and things are done properly. And a lot of that has to do with the pride they take in their tools and that they're able to actually execute that. So yeah, that is part of our process.
I think it's totally fair. You're coming in, you got to protect your assets as much as they're trying to protect theirs. And I don't know that there's a way that they can really ask you to kind of reciprocate on that one. And I don't know that they should have a problem, right? You're depending on them a lot more in this situation than I think they're depending on you. They can clearly tell that, people are getting paid, the business is running, they can kind of figure that all out. But you're sending them out generally probably for with thousands of dollars of materials to go install, and there's a lot more liability on the installation side than there is on a purely sales side.
Well, and
So I think
we
it's
lend
fair to
out
want to test them.
tools. Yeah, we lend out tools and equipment, so I like to see how they maintain things.
Okay.
So whether that's rollers or demo equipment or
Hmm.
mixers or whatever else, the popular for the guys to want to borrow the crane appliance sleds and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we want to make sure we're getting them back in one piece and not having to police. And we don't ask them to leave their left shoe when they want to borrow a piece of equipment as collateral. So we want to make sure that they treat those things and they're not getting thrown in, not just for the cutting down on the life expectancy of the equipment, but so that it's going to perform for them in the future when they pull that saw back out tomorrow to make
Hmm.
more cuts.
But I don't know what kind of rates you're willing to pay, but I like the sound of your operation. So folks, if you're in Chicago, and you might want to drive out to Plainfield and make an appointment to talk with Kevin about what he's got going on and how you can help him, because it sounds like you've got some great partners already, and I'm sure you wouldn't be upset if you were able to find a way to take on more work and grow your advertising and your business by having some more installation partners. But it sounds like you got a really good thing going on.
We really try to, and kind of to your point earlier about like what are we willing to pay. I may not you may not get the most amount of work, but I've never once rejected an installer's rate sheet. Never once. Not
I don't
I
know if
say
that's credit to how well you're doing or if that's bad for installers and they don't think enough of themselves to charge more. That could go either
no, we
way.
have. So do we have a minute for me to go into kind of like our rating
Sure.
process?
Yeah, man. We
Okay.
got time.
Okay. So we do ask them for a rate sheet. We've got a very extensive one, which a lot of guys will feel not applicable on a lot of stuff. So obviously
Hmm.
my carpet guys are having nothing to do with the whole hard surface sheets. But it has things like demo. We are kind of an a la carte company. in terms of how we charge customers and in terms of how we pay our guys out. So we don't expect one rate for including demo and furniture and everything else. So if there's furniture, we're going to pay you extra for the furniture. If there's take up, you're going to get paid for that. So in our model, we do ask for those sort of rates. Now, a couple of guys will blend something that the hard surface guys assume the tack strips are coming up if they pull up carpet for the job. But they give us their rates. For the guys who don't have them, we have at any given point a list that we can provide to them that we then say, would you put your name at the top of this and accept it as your own? Okay. And that is based off of our mean prices for that. And then once we put it in, we can. So it's important that they've either given us their own or accepted our norms. And we can quickly cost a job, pre-cost a job's labor based on that. And just say, hey, out of these 6 crews who are certified to do that particular skill, carpet, whatever it is, most of them come out relatively similar. But if there was an out, let's say a job came out and it labor costed out to $2,000, and 4 of the guys were 1980, 2021, 2000 even, and then somebody's $3,000. Okay. When it comes to who we're assigning that job to, unless there is some super compelling reason, the $3,000 guy just isn't getting the call.
Yes.
So I don't reject it. They do still have the opportunity to get it, because once in a while there is some spectacular thing about that person that means I really need, that level of expertise. And it may be somebody who is very expensive in patterned carpet, on-site serging, and he's just not my guy to do standard flat work. So I don't reject his price list, but I'm also not calling him for 25-ounce plush install, right?
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
Totally fair.
So that's how we roll. So if we just explain it to them and say, listen, I want you to charge what you feel like you need to charge. It's not for me to say, even if there's some additional work, it's like, hey, we have this little problem here. I go, what do you need? How much do we need to get that fixed? And then we put a little modest markup, present it to the customer, and we get approval. It's not, you need to get it done for 100, because it's like, no, you need $300 to grind this or level that or whatever. Okay, let's figure it out. So it sets the tone for the ongoing things once jobs are in progress. But to start from the beginning, they have some idea. Frankly, if some guy came to me with a rate that was too low, they probably undervalue themselves. And unless I see that real diamond in the rough that's just sort of been abused by other stores, I'd have to question how in the world is it? That seems too good to be true, which is then, the same as I would tell a customer shopping with a contractor's price who is too good to be true.
Yeah.
Is the other shoe going to drop? Are you going to hit me for 3x the price of the original project in floor prep or something else? Or is there going to be problems? It doesn't seem like enough for you to get the job done. It's not worth you getting out of bed to go do that. So
correct. What corners are you cutting to offer me that price?
Absolutely. And don't, to be boastful of the corners that you're going to cut. That's a quick way to end the interview with us. Well, we just do that. We use cardboard for leveling all the time. I'm like,
just shove it underneath.
Cardboard dries faster than Ardex, right? So.
Yes. Is anybody, like, how often are some of your subs coming and renegotiating or updating the price sheet, or do you ask for it on a yearly basis as just part of a contract that you have with them?
I do proactively ask at least once a year. It's usually around the time when their certificate of insurance is expiring. We kind of have like, hey, is your list current? We'll also do it if we've noticed any other macroeconomic condition changes. Say, hey, we know it's getting tough. We do other things to sort of supplement that don't have to do with like a permanent rate change. Case in point would be gas cards.
Okay.
Say, hey, gas is $4.10 a gallon right now. Jobs are getting gas cards attached to them so that it's temporary. It's kind of like a fuel surcharge from the manufacturers. So we're happy to sort of share with that.
Okay.
Anybody who's, when they come, if they're randomly asking for it, my first response isn't to reject it. It's to have a quick conversation, we'll pretty much understand, prices have gone up. You need to get this. I know my insurance went up, his insurance went up, the gas went up. I get it.
Hmm.
Um, and then it's also when there's nothing else that's happening with that, we ask why, what are you going to do to get it? What's going to be different? Is
Okay.
there some additional benefit that you're going to bring? I think bonuses are rewarding backwards behavior, like rewarding what already happened, and increases are going to be a conversation about future
Hmm.
behavior, future improvements. And we try to add things that aren't even on the price list. I love bonuses, I really do. Hard to get the guys to take advantage of this. So it's almost like I ask them for feedback, like the questions of what do I need? I'd love installers that took better pictures right now. You know, I would probably
Okay.
send them to a training on photo taking more than I would send them to something about floor prep right now. My photo taking, my helping installers. Like we pay a bonus if the installer can get the customer to leave a review on the spot. We give them QR codes that they can
Hmm.
present to the installer. Give them a bonus if they do it. Like, we know the job wrapped up at 2 o'clock and the review came in at 2:30. We know the installer did that.
Hmm.
And if they could mention the installer by name, we'll pay an even bigger bonus. So
Okay.
we have, things that we want to do to reward those good things and find more ways to give them money, not just I need more money because I want more money, but
Yeah.
where's the additional value, or why did the price go up? We understand,
Hmm. So,
but
but
it's a conversation.
okay, you're willing to have it. They need to come to you for a reason. You have kind of a schedule of when you handle it with each individual crew, like you said, based on when their insurance expires, or you're paying attention to the economy. It's not off the table, and I think a lot of times guys and gals feel like it's off the table. But again, you presented it in a way of, if you can come sit down with me as a business owner and show me where the expenses are, what additional value you'll provide for that cost. Like, I'm happy to have the discussion and see where we can end up. And that's the big difference overall about this entire conversation, is that we're truly discussing, you are a company, you need to sit down and you need to have a discussion as a company. You're not just an installer. If you want to be an installer, go find the company that wants to hire employees, and then you can go be an installer all day, every day, because that's what you're doing. But if you want to be an independent contractor, you have a company, whether it's just for installation or not, you still have a company, you have a client, you need to service them, and you are selling yourself to Kevin every time you go out and do a project, or you're selling yourself to whatever retailer you're partnered with, and you need to be able to sit down and explain your cost to them on why you need certain things or need to have this taken care of or that taken care of, and it's not part of your standard services. You need to understand what your exact business model is. So I think this conversation's been really helpful to kind of go through what this basic need of coming in and, hey, how do I find a way to partner with a retailer? But with that being said, is there anything you think we didn't hit on throughout it so far, Kevin?
Well, continuation on that last point you made
Mm-hmm.
about being able to come to the table and have that conversation and explain why the cost might be different. It's not much different for an installer coming to me than it would be for that letter coming from Shaw or Mohawk or whomever that the prices are increasing. They often wait for one to fall, and then word spreads that one guy raised their price 7% or whatnot, and then
Mm-hmm.
everybody else will. Uh, but just be conscious of it. Realize that it may take you out of the equation if a certain material we sell becomes cost prohibitive, or essentially the near identical product is much more expensive than the one from the other competing brand. It may get shown more often, it may get customer accepted more often. And I think
Mm-hmm.
installers are, in a way, the same way. I don't want to treat them like a commodity, but if you're not doing or adding more value than the other guy and it's all equal, yeah, then chances are we're going to assign the jobs to the people that make us the most margin.
Yeah, I think that's the look that I think and feel that most installers think is existing, right? They are a commodity, and the sad part is we're not. Is there is a shortage of good installers, and so when you can come to the table and you're running a business and you're able to have these discussions, you can really set yourself apart And there is a way to demand higher fees for yourself because you are delivering at a higher level, and it's better for you. It's better for, you know, for Kevin as a business owner because he's having more satisfied clientele. And it's, you know, that would hopefully mean that you're growing this company, and then you're going to create more like individuals such as yourself that can compete at a high level within the field, as opposed to a race to the bottom, which it seems it's been for more than a few years. And that's not doing any of us any favors.
Yeah. So for that, just like make our lives as the owner operator, but retailer easier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, and the two on that is, are you going to be easy to work with? Are you communicating well? Um, and are you going to be on time? Are you going to be reliable? Is your paperwork going to be turned in? Basically reduce the hassle factor. You know, I can look at the margin I'm going to make on a job, and I might make less margin with one particular installer, but I know that we're not going to get a callback. I know that we're not going to get tracking them down for paperwork. I know that there's not going to be problems that come up along the way that they're not able to solve. We don't realize sometimes as business owners, tracking those soft costs associated with dealing with those challenges, they can add up because we're often too consumed with the exact amount paid to the installer versus the exact amount paid by the consumer, and only looking at the difference in there as our margin. But the hassle factor of like that was a hard percentage to earn if you had a lot of other back and forth and running around and phone calls and confusion. And then the other big thing, I think, especially for a business like us, probably give the advice on one of the kiss of deaths for a conversation with us. One of the hardest installers for us to have a relationship with is, and I don't mean to offend anybody who goes down this path, but for us as a scaled operation, we can't custom quote every job. It's just not feasible. I think Jerry Levinson makes really good points about these things, like, you know, having a shower for a certain package, and then we'll figure out the details later. You know, we need to know what we can go in, and we can't, for an in-home company especially, we're trying to do in-the-home presentation of quotes. It can't be, we need to send the installer out to take a second look and see if it makes sense, and we'll figure out all the nooks and crannies. So if the installer, this goes back to not having a price list or not knowing how to put together, you know, job costing, it's very difficult for us to have that relationship. We need to know that if we sold it for X, that we're going to be able to count on you to get that done for less than X.
I think I'm the great example of that, right? I could never really find a store to partner with, but it was because I never felt I was going to get paid fairly. But I was used to already selling to clientele myself, and I could go in and I could custom bid everything and look it over and really come up with it. And you're right, that's probably not going to be a great fit for you. I've always said that retailers at scale want to provide high-end service, but they have to accept mediocrity in order to do it. Not everything can be that high-end perfect job, right? If you want to be in multiple $1-million business, it's harder to find all of that top 5% of the market. You've got to get down into that middle 50%, and you're going to end up dealing with clients that may be a little bit more difficult, may just need the right pricing, and at scale, you can make that model. Whereas myself as independent installation company with very small boutique store, I can go look and be extra picky about who I find because I'm only worried about keeping myself, maybe one or two other people busy, as opposed to keeping 50 people busy. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just knowing what business model do you want to fit. And so if you want to be the picky high-end guy, then trying to sub for retailers that don't have an exclusivity to a very high-end detailed, we're going to custom quote every project, probably isn't a good fit for you. And that's okay, right? But this comes back to knowing your business model and then partnering with somebody's business model that fits with you. Or you just
And
need to go sell your own projects, and that's okay too.
absolutely. When you have somebody who is completely organized and doesn't mind running the appointments, um, a lot of these guys when they've been installers and go to do something like they're shocked that how many people they go see that don't hire them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, yeah, because whenever you hear about the job from us, you're hired. It's done. It's happening. You forget about the other 7 out of 10 times or 4 out of 10 times, that you sold something or didn't sell something, and you drove across town and you did the estimate. And we have a couple of installers that they find their way out of our relationship sooner rather than later, typically,
Mm-hmm.
when they do want to custom quote every job. So they tend to be a little bit bigger projects, things that are a little bit more detail oriented. So for us, that would be custom staircases and banisters and balusters and newel posts. And
Mm-hmm.
so we've got a process where we get like a really good ballpark commitment from the customer. We use a lot of video during our sales
Okay.
process, and then we can show those videos like a walkthrough to the installers to say, hey, this is what the job is. Here's the floor plan. Here's the square footage. Here's the staircase, the nuances. Before we even think about having you go out there for minutia, would you like to price this? And they're the ones who don't have set price rates. Where they tend to get frustrated is that if I send that out at 8 o'clock Tuesday morning, right?
Mm-hmm.
First off, I could be sending it to 6 crews that are all qualified for that job. 4 of them, I already know what it costs because they're comfortable having their rate sheets. And within a percentage or two, we know what it is. 2 of them want to look at it and custom quote.
Okay.
Well, they don't get back to me for 48 hours. So more often
Yeah.
than not, I'm sending a notice of disregard, guys. The job has already been awarded
Mm-hmm.
before they even got around to quoting it. So it makes it tough, and that will be the same answer again. My friend Jerry over there saying, quote in the house. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you could be in a customer's house at 5 o'clock, not provide them with a quote, and you'll email it the next day. When somebody else follows up after 7 o'clock that same night, walks in, gives it, may have even been for more money, but walked out with a check. So
Yeah.
there's something to be said for being able to quote like that. And those are the guys that are like, man, it took me an hour to work that up or send it over to you, and you're not even going to look at it because the job was awarded. I had a guy who said that my email to him that the job was awarded came while he was drafting his estimate to send over to me.
That
And I'm
sucks.
like, yeah, it sucks. That's really the answer. And I'm like, he wasted an hour. The other guys wasted no time because it was
Mm-hmm.
all computer for me. It was just, what would it cost with these
Yeah.
guys? Um, and sometimes, we don't even necessarily need to send it to those other non-rate sheet on file
Mm-hmm.
guys because I don't even want to ask them to do it. So, I mean, the way we assign our jobs, are they the right guy for the job? Does the money
Yeah.
make sense? Are they geographically centered? Are they skilled? Do they have the temperament for this type of job? Do they like big jobs, small jobs, furniture, no furniture? We know our guys.
Uh-huh.
It's like setting up people on a date.
Yeah,
I know what they like. I know
yeah.
what they have, and I put them together.
It sounds like you're catering very, very well to the people that you can work very, very well with, and there's some outliers, as there needs to be, right? They don't fit every project, but occasionally they're going to fit something that you find, and you're able to do it. But I think the people that are those occasional things, right? I may be able to come to you and you would be like, all right, man, like, you are going to be the guy that I reach out. I'm going to ask for a custom quote, once a year. I'd probably be okay with that. And I would know that I'm just going to have to go out and run my own, you know, I'm going to have to generate my own leads and run my own quotes and get those consultations in and go find my projects. And occasionally, right, maybe I get something from you and I can send in a custom number, but I'm also going to end up telling you that, hey, I can do that, but I'm 4 to 6 weeks out or whatever it is at the time. And you're going to have to, if you like my number, you're going to have to get them to wait because I can't drop everything I'm doing to take your project. And there's a lot of considerations, right? It could be that an occasional partnership would work, but it doesn't, again, know your business model, know how you're doing it. And of course, this conversation was more geared towards the people that want to go and get handed a work order and just go off and do it. But I think there's a way to do this successfully that doesn't involve having to slave away. And I, from our previous conversation and just kind of seeing how you post in the groups and whatnot, you're running a business where you want everyone to win. You're not about the dollars and cents. You're about providing value, not only to the people that you're subcontracting to, but to the homeowner as well. And you know that is going to cost more than perhaps what the quote unquote going rate is. And that's okay. We can build around that and make it work for everybody involved so everybody's happy, right? There might have to be some compromises, but we can get there. And I think that's the important part, is how do we go, and if that's the business model we want to run, how do we get that established? And I think we've kind of walked through how to do that and find different options, and then even present that, hey, I may not be a great fit all the time for you, but do you have these one-offs that maybe we could partner up on? And that can work as well. So if anybody is in the Chicagoland area, how do they find you, Kevin?
floorscometrue.com would be the easiest thing.
Okay.
/installers if you're an installer. Okay. But we're out in Plainfield. So we have a warehouse office, but we are not open to the general public. And probably after 10 o'clock on most days, that place is a ghost town. So our sales guys are on the road. Once guys are loaded out, there's not a whole lot happening back at the ranch. So best to get us online in the Facebook groups. I'm pretty much a staple in a lot of those, and look us up on the website. My email address is my first name last name @floorscometrue.com. So
okay,
by all means, reach out.
That's awesome. I appreciate it. What do we got here? Check out flooracademypod.com. Go to the files section. If you're struggling to know your numbers, I've got the business budget calculator over there that you can download. And that thing's going to help you figure out what you actually need to charge once you start doing some time studies and really dig into, what your actual costs are. So many guys forget that they need to be charging for gas. That's not just something that gets included. You drive a certain amount of miles a year and you have a miles per gallon that your truck or van or whatever gets, and you need to calculate out that cost as well. You can help support the show by going to patreon.com/Floor Academy. Even $5 a month would go a long way in helping me to continue to produce this content and you to receive it. Don't forget to join the Facebook group. Go in there, have conversations. Let's talk about what it's going to take to run a business. Put your questions in there, what you're struggling with, and use a resource of over 2,000 people to help you get the answers you're looking for. Someone's probably been through it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's absolutely no need for that. That is something I see happening all of the time, is everyone thinks, oh, my business is unique. It's probably not. I hate to tell you. It's probably not. Somebody's already been there, done that, created it. You might as well get a hand up and get through it a lot quicker than they did. What do we got? Lastly, what do we got? We got a word from Tice. Stay connected, continue discovering, learn more, and network. Now available, you will want to access the International Surface Events new resource library. Flip through the digital pages of the Tice resource books to source products, take tailored journeys through the Tice event offerings, or watch, rewind, and share Tice recorded content from the event. Visit intlsurfaceevent.com to learn more, or you can click on the link in the show notes. You'll even see this podcast featured inside the Tice 2024 textbook, offering select recordings from this year's amazing event in Las Vegas. And of course, don't forget to look at what the dates are for next year. Put it on your calendar, book it out, book the room, get the plane ticket, because I know you're not going any other way. You're going to take that project when it shows up, and you're going to drop everything, except you've been telling people for 2 months you were going to go. And it's just not great, right? Book it out, commit, do it, come and network. I promise you that you will get so much out of meeting people from across the country that are investing in themselves to better their businesses. And that is a great event to be at to do that. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. I truly appreciate your insights and having the conversation with me. We will catch you all.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. It was. We will catch you all next week.